Hey, it's Tuesday. It's Total Schmidt Show, 6 o'clock. How you doing? Welcome back. Thank you for returning to the show. Lawrence Thomas, good friend of mine, many years, many years, and he's here. Hey, welcome to the Total Schmidt Show. Whether you're watching on the Lenny Schmidt Comedy Network on YouTube or you're listening on podcast, we have a new intro, new theme song. Let's do this. Hey, tune in every week as I travel the world and I talk to entertainers from all over the world. A lot of writers, a lot of comics, a lot of dancers, a lot of singers, a lot of comics, a lot of producers, a lot of tech people, a lot of comics, a lot of pianists, piano player type people. You know what I'm talking about. Musicians and lots of comics. Every once in a while, we'll throw in a comedy sketch, something like that, some music, some travel stuff. We'll even do a live remote from one or two of the ports that happen to be hanging out at.
That's it. That's the whole show. And I'm going to record it all and put it on the intraweb. Sometimes. Usually late. Always late. Maybe. I don't know. And weekly? Nah, maybe. Sort of.
Either way, sit back, grab a beer, light a joint, and enjoy this week's episode of
No. I live down in, I'm in Manhattan Beach, man.
Oh, look at you. Fancy. All right. That's a nice place, dude.
I'm the only idiot comic that ever moved to Manhattan Beach and bought a house when they came to California.
Fuck, dude. It doesn't look so idiot now. I got news for you. I live in the Valley, so I wouldn't mind being an idiot living in Manhattan Beach. That's not bad.
Well, it was, I don't own the house anymore. I don't have the wife anymore. But I've somehow between comedy, acting, bartending, and Airbnb, and being a handyman, I've had an ocean view for 23 years.
Yeah, dude. That's the best, dude. If I could just do that, that's very cool, man. I like that. Right now I have a view of my parking garage. That's what I'm staring at.
Well, I like it. Yeah, you know your car's safe.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we just moved into this building a couple months ago. So, but both my daughters live with me. So I would have left LA years ago if it wasn't for both my kids. So,
well, my daughter lives on the east side of Manhattan Beach. So
nice.
I'm here.
Nice. So how's it going, man? So you're down there. You're not traveling at all, right? You just hang in the area and just bounce around. And what do you do? What do you got going on?
Well, I just did my first club in, I don't know, 6 years. Went to, you ever worked for Chris Spire of Mason City, Illinois?
Yeah, I love that room. It's
I do too, man.
Outside of Peoria. They're a good crowd, man. He gets good people. Chris is a great guy.
Oh, he's phenomenal. I've known him since 1990. I was doing a guest set at comedy. Back then, it was Comedy on Broadway in Lexington.
Right.
I'd opened for Beth Donahue at Zany's in Nashville, and she invited me to come up and do a guest set. And Chris was the MC, and we've been buddies since 1990.
Nice. I've been trying to find time to get back. I would love to get back over there, man. He's kind of like, I mean, it's a kind of a trip, you know what I mean, to get there to his place. Yeah. But I got family that lives in Peoria, and I don't really do, what do you call it? Jukebox. Yeah, I don't do that anymore because Dan, the guy there, I can never get him on the phone. He's a real pain in the ass to deal with. Blah 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 blah. But I got family down there, so I would love. So I booked Chris's place just so I can go down there and see the family. The family comes out and sees the shows, because they used to come out to Jukebox all the time, and they'll drive from Peoria to Chris's place. They don't care. It's maybe 40-minute ride.
Yeah, 40 minutes. Like we've been over there. Years ago. I mean, we had a slow Saturday night, and I did my Saturday night first show and canceled the second show, and we drove over to Peoria and saw Kostaki on stage and some people,
Oh, right. God, I haven't seen Kostaki in forever. Did you go to Big Al's? Is that still there, Big Al's? Is Big Al still there in Peoria?
I don't know. What's that?
It was a famous strip club for years, and everybody used to talk about Big Al's back when I've been in Peoria well over 10, 15 years, I think. Maybe, before I got divorced, I think. Yeah, it has to be 15 years. But that was everybody would go to Big Al's. And like when I was younger, in my 20s, that was the thing. You're like, oh, let's go to Big Al's. And then you get older and you're like, fuck Big Al's. I don't know, why strip clubs are like, the last time I was in Vegas, I went to a strip club and we had table service. And that's when I realized that strip clubs sucked. I'm not a fan of strip clubs. It's like you spend so much money to argue with people. That's all it was.
Right. Yeah.
No. Here's $100. No, here's another $100. No. And I'm like, why am I here? I'm 57 years old with a bunch of people, and you hang. A lot of times you hang with people that are younger than you. You're on the road because you're older. You know what I mean? And it's just there's younger people in the clubs and whatever. But I'm like, I gotta get out of here. I gotta go.
Yeah. So. There's no reason. It's 60. I'm 60, man. I just turned 60.
Yeah.
So there's no reason for me to be in a strip joint.
You look good, brother. Yeah, you look good. You know when they sucked me in the strip? Whatever. I do a bit about it now. It's like a sad bit. When I got divorced, I was miserable, and I went to a strip club all the time. And there was now they have a thing where the strippers give you they have a burner, like a phone burner. You know what I mean? So, and every once in a while, so they have their own phone. So if it's slow, here's the deal: if they're slow at the club, they send you a text that says, "I miss you." And they were aiming for guys like me that were in their 40s and just got divorced and were miserable and sad. And I would see this, I miss you. I'm like, oh my God, Cinnamon misses me. And I would drive to the strip club. Just miserable, sad. I would show up all happy, like she's waiting for me, not knowing she texted 19 other guys, and you would just walk in the door. But when they got cell phones, it changed the whole game because they would text you when they're slow. Yeah. And that's when I realized it started.
Most of the strippers I knew didn't have cell phones or teeth. So that was good.
Well, that's like that strip club next to Jukebox. We used to joke about that place. That was like that. In fact, speaking of AA ball, that's the AA strip club.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that place is not good or safe. You know what I mean? You would go in there. Yeah. There was always a fight.
I used to have a whole bit about it. You're either an old fucking slugger on the way down or an up-and-comer saving for your boob job,
Oh, dude, I didn't even think about that part of it. You're like 56. Man. I used to be somebody. And you're like, whoa.
Who was it that had a bit that was like, the strip club announcer when she is Miss New 1980 and he goes, I want somebody born in 1980, man.
Yeah, right.
That was 20 years ago. That bit was 20 years old.
I don't know who that bit. That's hilarious. That sounds funny. But I didn't even think about the aspect of it. Oh my gosh. Yeah, we got occasionally. In fact, I'm going out to dinner with some friends tomorrow night, and one of the guys I go out with, we know a girl that works at Jumbo's, so sometimes we end up at Jumbo's, and that's it's fun, but it's like, I'm throwing a lot of money around, watching girls in bikinis dance. You know what I mean?
Right.
And they all have the same move at Jumbo's where they do this thing where they're on the pole and they slide down, they slam their boots or on the ground, like that's supposed to be the move or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I don't know how sad it is that I know the stripper moves. I'm like, oh, that's a go-to stripper move.
It's the lure of the naked woman. We had to pass a strip joint on the way to my grandmother's house when I was a kid, and I knew what was going on there, and I would stare at the front door at like 40 miles an hour, like a stripper might be coming out to get the paper or something. Hey, is that the Thomas kid going by?
Like they're living upstairs. That's the best.
Yeah,
like, come on. Maybe the robe will slide open and I'll catch a side boob shot. When you're a kid, you don't know, man. You think that when you're a kid, you see strip club, like, oh my gosh. That's the best. There used to be, I don't know if you ever did the Funny Bone in Pittsburgh. Did you ever work for Schneider?
I've worked for Schneider one time, but I didn't do Pittsburgh. I did a weekend room or something.
Okay, he had a weekend room. He had the Lancaster gig, which is a weekend room. I did that. Yeah, I did that a couple of times. But he booked the Funny Bone in Pittsburgh, and they put you up in this high rise, like this, like an apartment building or whatever it was. And on the top floor of the apartment building was a high end escort service, and I mean it was high end, man. I mean they were crazy, beautiful women. So every once in a while you get in an elevator with these women who were like crazy TV model hot, and you're just like, oh my God, look at this woman. And one day I was riding up in the elevator and I think they knew the comics were staying there. I think they kind of figured it out. Because I would be like, I'm going to ask you a question. Can I ask you a question? And she's like, you can't afford me. And that's all she said. You just can't. There's no way you can afford me. I know there's no way. And I'm like, okay, miss, thank you for your time. It's just quiet, Yeah, Yeah, but she was like,
We used to work the. Go ahead.
Oh no, but she was like, I mean, they were crazy, like TV hot. They were like, most high ends. Those girls that are probably about $3,000 a night. Where it was just crazy.
I used to work a club. I worked it twice. I think Sobel booked it. It was in Washington D.C. on K Street, I think, and it was on the third floor. And in the basement I think it was called Archibald. It's like the most famous strip joint in Washington D.C.
Oh, I heard of that
and
place.
You would come off stage and you'd walk in through the back door to where the steps are that go down to the third, down to the basement. And there'd be a naked chick standing out there watching you from like the crack of the door. Go, I think you were really funny. You're just
really
talking to a naked chick. Yeah, in the back hallway, man.
Dude, that's pretty cool. Well, to them, that's their job. Go ahead. That's their job.
Yeah. I said one time back in the day, Creative was booking a strip joint in Atlanta, the Palomino Club. It had switched from Tops and Tails to the Palomino Club. And like you say, the thing about a strip joint is to get the guys in, you got to have the girls. But the catch-22 is to get the girls in, you got to have, the guys. And so they were putting, like, I called my ex-wife at the time we were married. I go, hey, man, I got an opportunity to work this strip joint, but it's on Thanksgiving. And she was like, I don't know about that. And then I told her how much money. She goes, take it.
Yeah.
And so I did 2 weeks there, man. And it was just terrible. 3 10-minute sets a night, 6:30, 9:30, and 12:30. And you go up and do like 10 minutes or 15 minutes. And it was just, and like Tommy Chong had been there like 2 weeks before I was there. And it was nuts, man. And you think, well, some of these girls are just working their way through college. Nah, that's not it. All of them were a little. You're just like, well, it was quite the experience.
Once they get a taste of how much money it is, they make a lot of money. Those girls make a lot of money.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no question that the strippers make tons of cash. So, and I think all of them do that thing where they start to. They'll go, oh, I'm just trying to get through school. And then they'll do it a couple times and they'll go, oh, this is really good. And I guess some of them do. Right. I guess some do move on and do it get through school or whatever. But for the most part, I think when they get a taste of the money, they're like, oh, my God, I can make more money at this than whatever it is I'm studying at school.
Yeah. Yeah. My horticulture degree is not going to pay like this is.
Yeah, what am I thinking? It's teachers, and the more the older you get, the smarter you get about professions too. Like when you're 18, you start to think. I would like when I was in high school, I thought being a gym teacher and a football coach would be cool, right? And I was kind of in the restaurant industry a little bit, and I worked that for a little bit. But then I found out how much teachers got paid, and I was like, oh God, I don't want to do that. I want to be a gym teacher for whatever. At the time back then, it was like horrible. I mean, still horrible. Honestly, teachers get paid way less than they should. But back then, I realized the teachers were making, truck drivers are making more. Yeah. And I was like, oh, my God, you can be a truck driver and make way more money than a teacher.
Over the road.
Yeah. Why would I want to? And plus, in the truck.
But, I mean, you kind of were.
Yeah, with the truck drivers.
If you were a comic.
Yeah, you were the same thing. Well, that didn't fall until I was 22, and then you don't realize how much of the job is driving, especially starting out. That first handful of years.
If you had a rig, you could have carried stuff for people.
Oh, dude, yeah. Dude, I didn't think about it. Dude, that would have been a brilliant idea back then. How many hours I drove from Chicago to Texas? You know what I mean? Why wouldn't I just load up the truck? You know what? I'm going to load up the truck and make a trip out of this. I'll make an extra $4,000, and then I can go do my shitty feature gig for C.W. Kendall.
C.W. Kendall. Wow, I've heard that name in a long time.
I know, right? Every once I hear a name, you're like, oh, you got to be kidding me. Yeah, Tribble. Like I used to work for Tribble a lot. And he had to go fund me during COVID. I guess him and his wife fell in some hard times during COVID. I don't know if you got out of the business. Really? Yeah. And I sent him money. I worked a lot for Tribble. It didn't end well with Tribble, but it never does. Those were gigs. He was similar to CW. At least he routed his gigs. I started working for him when Dan Kaufman booked his stuff, who was out of Idaho. And those guys gave me a ton of work. So I mean, it really gave me a year. I developed a lot working for those guys. Boise and all those small Pocatello. Pocatello I did all the time.
I did. He had a room in Craig, Colorado?
Oh God, I did. Craig. Some guy rushed the stage on me in Craig because it's a miners town.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a miners town. So
I was talking to this friend of mine was Freddie Fender's drummer. Yeah, I was in Craig. I was talking to this guy who was Freddie Fender's drummer, and he goes, "What's the toughest town you ever played?" I go, "I think it was this town, Craig, Colorado." I go, "There was like 3 fights after the show," and that's what he said. He goes, "The first time he ever went there, he said, I want to get paid." He goes, "Well, I'll pay you after the fight." And then he's like, "What?" He goes, "There's always a fight." So.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, I got paid. I guess the deal was because because it's a miners town, they get paid on the 1st and the 15th. That's the deal is there, that type of scenario. So I was there right after payday, and they told me, they go, it's going to be crazy tonight. I go, all right, I don't know what that means. What do you mean? I've never done the gig before. And everybody got paid yesterday. So everybody's out spending money. And sure enough, man, it was a shit show. They were not pleasant. And some guy said something. I can't remember so far back. Some guy said something to me. I said something to him. He got up, came for the stage. And then the security came over and stopped him. I mean, it was like Blues Brothers. It was very close to the Blues Brothers scenario. Yeah, and I was like, this is ridiculous. I go, this is okay. And then they had to walk me in my car. It was a whole thing. And these guys were hammered. The room was just, everybody was just drunk off their minds because they had just gotten paid the day before. And I'm like, I guess that's the deal. I'm like, all right, I guess that's how we're doing this. So we did that. And did Mike ever tell his story about Mission, South Dakota? We played Mission, South Dakota once. This is a bad one. This is back when Mike and I were on the road a lot together. And he hated it because Mike doesn't drink.
Right.
And I do. And back then I drank much more than I drank a lot. So I'd go out and I'd get hammered, and Mike would have to drive home where we are. So I used to drive him crazy. It'd be nuts. But we're in Mission, South Dakota. And we worked for a guy named Jeff Connor who used to book a bunch of stuff in the Midwest. And we worked for him a lot. He was a crook. He robbed a lot of guys. Never robbed me. He screwed Mike over a little bit, but he never. And eventually, but the deal was you would do a bunch of gigs in a row for him, and then you'd have one night where you picked up a bunch of cash. Like you would do.
Right.
And Mission was a place where we picked up for some reason, this place was giving us like $2,000 or whatever. And it was it's an Indian reservation. It's a small resort or club or whatever you want to call it on an Indian reservation. And it's not a nice place. It's a dive. It's a crappy joint. And you walk in, and there was only 12 people there, and it was just drunk Native Americans. And they just heckled us the entire show. It was like a group of guys that heckled us the entire, and they were not cool. They were drunk. They were obnoxious. They were a pain in the ass. At one point, Mike does his 30 or whatever, and I had to do an hour, so I go up and I do some time. During my show, a guy went out to his car and brought in a shotgun, and was cleaning his gun at the table while we're there, and it was heckling me while he was doing it. I mean, it was not good. It was just, it's like a scene from a movie where you're like, I can't believe none of this is happening. So I did about 50 minutes, and I get off stage. I mean, they were paying attention. They were just talking and yelling at me, and talking. And yelling. Nobody's watching the show. I get off and go see the bartender, and he goes, "You're not done." I go, "What do you mean I'm not done?" He goes, "Your contract is to do an hour, and you did 50 minutes. He goes, you need to go back up there and do another 10 minutes. I go, "Are you kidding me?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm not going to give you this money unless you go up there and you do the." So I had to go back up on stage and do another 10 minutes in this room that was not. And again, they're and it's basically, it seemed like they were paying us just to heckle us, and it was not. And everything you would say to them had no effect. They didn't care. Right. So I did my 10 minutes. I get off stage, and they're sending me. I drank on stage. Back then, I was drinking on stage still. I don't drink when I perform anymore. I drink after. But back then, I'm doing shots. I'm getting drunk. So Mike and I I'm getting drinks, and we get the money. We leave, and Mike and I leave, and we go to a Taco Time. Is the taco joint in that area in the Dakotas. It's like their Taco Bell. And we go through the drive-through, and I'm hammered. And Mike, we go to order some food, and the guy goes, "We're closed," through the drive-through. And Mike goes, "Why do you close the lights? Like you guys are closed." He goes, "Yeah, we're closed." And I yell, "Well, you should turn off your fucking lights if you're closed." And Mike drives away. He's pissed at me. He's like, "Don't do that, dude. Don't do that." And we packed our stuff that night and we're supposed to stay in the hotel, and we left. It just was a bad vibe everywhere we were. It was just not cool. It was terrible. It was Mission, South Dakota. It was a terrible gig. We got our money, but we left immediately, and we drove. We kept driving, But it was horrible. It was horrible.
I don't blame you.
Oh, it was horrible.
I've gotten a couple fights. I got in a fight with a guy or a fight, if you want to call it that, Pantana Bob's in North Carolina in Chapel Hill. This guy heckled I was co-headlining with a guy, and he heckled the MC, and then he heckled the other guy, and I just laid it to him, just going and going and going on him. And then afterwards, it was a guy from North Carolina's baseball team. He comes over and goes, "Come drink with us." And I'm like, "I'm not going to drink with you." And I had my T-shirts on my shoulder, bag of T-shirts. I'm wearing cowboy boots. And he goes, "I'm going back to the room. I had to call my wife," or something like that. And he goes, "She won't be there. She'll be in my hotel room sucking my dick." And I'm like, "What?" And so I threw the crappiest punch I've ever thrown, and I hit the guy, and he didn't go down. And I was like, "Oh shit, I'm in trouble." And I started backing up. And luckily, the whole football team was the bouncers, and they came over and wiped out the baseball team, and me and Dan French walked away.
Oh God, Dan French! Oh my God, that's the
Yeah,
best,
man.
dude. Those are the days. I think about those one night gigs. Those one night gigs back then, man. Those. Dude, basically when I lived out of my car, sometimes I look at those days and I'm like, I kind of envy them, or I'm like, because you had no responsibility, really. You just had your car and all your stuff. That was it. Now I got 2 kids here in college, and you're like, "Oh, I got to work," and it just changes the aspect of the whole vibe. You know what I mean? It's just I see kids now young doing stand up, and I envy them, but I also feel bad because I remember too when I was doing those Tribble gigs. For a while, I worked right around the time they were about the same age. They shifted the pay at some point at the back end of the boom. Like I used to do one nighters, and I was getting $1,200 to $1,400 a week doing these one nighters, right? And then Tribble changed the pay to a structure to where the most you could make was like $9, but the features were making $3, and I'm like, man, I don't know how you're surviving. $300 a week on the road. I don't know how you're pulling that off.
The first time I worked the Punchline in Atlanta as an MC, I think I made $400 plus $50 travel.
Right
now, that's a bigger club, but it's not. But I mean, they were paying travel back then.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember travel.
Yeah.
I used to get when I moved here. Bert at Zanny's used to throw in travel. That's what I used to get. I used to get the headline week plus $3 for travel or whatever. I was like, all right. And then eventually we just lumped into one big thing and whatever. But yeah, I don't know how.
I love that. I love the Zany's Chicago room. That's my favorite room in the world.
It's it's great. Mike and I are doing it in November. I tape an album there every year, or I did before COVID, and I'll be back there. I did one after COVID, and I'll be back there in November taping the next one. But I bring Mike with me now. When Bert left, and I always got along with Bert. Bert was one of those guys I got along with him really well, and he was actually very good to me.
Yeah.
I was really fortunate. In fact, when I got divorced, Bert, I used to go back to Chicago. I used to go back to Chicago for a month at a time and work all the clubs. Back then they had Mount Prospect, so I would do 3 of the clubs in a row. And then when I got divorced and the kids moved back to Chicago with my ex, I called Bert and I said, "Hey, look, I don't want to come back once and do a month." I go, "Can I spread it out throughout the year and I did one around Anna's birthday, one around Lily's birthday, one around the holidays." And Bert did it without even a blink. I mean, I was a guy that I was just lucky with. Bert. A lot of guys.
He was a great guy.
Yeah, some guys, and it's like every club owner, you know what I mean? Like everybody, you have a club owner, you're like, "I hate that guy." And it's just, well, then he doesn't give you what you want. That's, it's part of the business. You know what I mean? Sometimes you have a guy you like and a guy you don't, but Bert was one of those guys that always went out of his way to really help me out. He could have fired me once, man. I came in once and I was doing a pheasant run for the week, and I got there and they told me, "Thursday you're leaving here and you're going to Mount Prospect or whatever." And I go, "Well, no one told me." And back then I was plugging on my website and all this little stuff going on, and I had people come out to see me. And I was pissed. I was like, no one told me about it until I got here. So I called Bert and left him a shitty message. I go, Bert, what the fuck, man? I'm here. You don't tell me. I'll get a head up. And at the time, and then while I'm on the phone with Bert, I'm getting a call from Cindy. I don't know if you ever met Cindy Nelson, who's now Cindy. She's the GM at Brad Garrett's place in Vegas. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So I work for her now at Brad Garrett's. But she literally saved the room in St. Charles. She literally saved the Pheasant Run room. Because, I mean, it was going to die. It wasn't doing well. I met her when she was a waitress there. She eventually became the GM and then turned the place around. It was a great, she's a great GM. And then she opened Rosemont. Right. I mean, she's really good at what she does. She's a phenomenal GM for comedy clubs. And every comic loves her, and she's just really dynamite. So she's running St. Charles at the time, and I see her call me while I'm leaving Bert this message. And I get off the phone with Bert, and I answer, sure. I go, what's up? She goes, don't call Bert. And I go, what? Why? He goes, here, because his father passed away like 2 weeks ago, and he's in the hospital right now with Sally. Sally had a heart problem. I go, he's going through a lot right now, so don't. I know you're upset, but don't call Bert. Let's just deal this between me and you. And they go, oh shit, I just left Bert a really shitty message. And she's like, oh Jesus, because I really wish you would. And then I see Bert calling me. And I'm like, oh shit, Bert's calling me. What do I do? She goes, well, you're gonna have to talk to him. So I answered the phone, and Bert was very curt, and he goes, Lenny, this is Bert. I'm in the hospital with Sally. I will call you tonight, and we will discuss this. And then, okay. Click. That was it. That was the only conversation we had. And then we talked that night, and he was great. But at the time, after that message, I'm like, oh, this guy, I'll never work Zanies again. I'm done. I'm
right.
I'm such an asshole. I just snapped and yelled at this guy, and he's in a bad place. So, but it ended up being good in the long run. But I know a lot of guys who just didn't like working for him. But I never had a problem working for Bert or Zanies.
He always liked me, man. As a matter of fact, he was the last club I worked before the pandemic, or even before that. I came off the road like a couple of years before the pandemic, and I called him. I go, hey, I want to do some shows. He goes, oh yeah, man, I always liked you. Come on. So I always liked Bert, So that was the last club I did. Was Zanies, the Old Town Club, And I was a Zanies guy from Nashville. I started off at Zanies in Nashville.
Oh yeah, that helps big time. Yeah. Well, I guess all those good, and Mike, like our problem, because like Mike opens for me now when I go back and do Zanies, and he didn't work for Bert, and I think it was more Mike's issue than Bert's, because like he was supposed to do a showcase for Bert, but he showed up late, and the door, downtown they locked the front door when you're
right,
at showtime, so you got to go through the side door. Mike didn't know that. So he couldn't get in the front door, and then he left. He called Bert the next day, and he never called Bert back. And Mike's weird that way. He's like, well, I don't think he likes me, and then he'll just never call him back. Yeah. So when Bert left, and I worked through Chris, who was booking at the time. Now it's booked by Lucy, who works in Nashville. She books all of them. But I said, hey, can I bring my brother Mike to open the show? Because we're from the area, and we could probably draw well. And we do. We have a couple of nights where we have a bunch of people from high school that we grew up with. And, we fill the room. It's one of the rooms where I do well. It's like going to your hometown. It's
right.
You go in there. And when Mike with me, it's double the effect. So it works even better. So we do. And that's why I taped there. Jesus, why I do the album there. I taped the Heavy Night, and the room is packed and sold out. And it's all people we grew up with. So, and family and stuff like that.
Nice.
Yeah, it works out great. It's a good gig.
I taped in Milwaukee at the Cafe.
Oh, it's JD, right? That's the guy. We were just talking about this guy the other day, man.
Yes, I think like Dobie didn't like him, or
Dobie sent him. There's a classic story about Dobie sending him Crisco after he had the heart attack. Do you know the story?
Right.
Yeah. Dobie hated him. Yeah, Dobie hated him. Yeah.
He was always great to me, man. He would. I mean, I had no problem. I mean, it was kind of weird being, around the outlaw motorcycle club. That was
right. Yeah.
But I always get along with him, and I just crushed in that room, and so that's where I would tape. It was just just sounded so good. You're on basically a 4x6 piece of wood as the stage, and a room just packed full of people. That was my favorite club. The laughter just boomed. I think it's, I'm Southern, but I don't do a Southern act. And I'm a big guy. I look like I ought to be drinking in Milwaukee, so that kind of thing.
Hang on, plug in there. Yeah, but you're Southern, so you got that. It's still likable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Almost on stage, that's a very "you're my buddy" type of vibe. We've got to be the same thing. Like I'm always everybody's buddy on stage, and with the Southern, that just adds to it. You know, you're like he's a good old boy, no matter what. You know what I mean? It's just, you're not going to lose people with the Southern accent. You know what I mean?
Did you know Bob Hoban?
No.
Bob Hoban was a piano player, and he played with John Prine. He played with Lemmings, with Belushi and those guys.
Right.
And he was a piano player. And towards the end of his career, he started playing. Lenny Sisselman brought him on stage at Zany's in Nashville, and he would play the piano behind you while you were doing your act, man. So if you did a Leave It to Beaver joke, he would go dee 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 on the piano, that type of shit.
That's kind of cool.
He told me, yeah, it was neat, man. I thought the first time he did it, I was like, "This is gonna be." He ended up playing. I think he ended up touring with what's his name? The guitar guy had a series with John Reap on it.
He had a series. Oh,
he had a series one season, and John Reap was on it. You know his name. Anyway, he ended up touring with him. But Bob Hoban told me, he goes, "Lawrence, you're the only person I've ever seen stand on stage and tell people you're going to beat the shit out of them, and they go, that's a great guy." You can get away with anything, man.
You're the best. I like that. Are you still booking the gig down there in Marina Del Rey? Is that where it's at?
Yeah, it's in Redondo.
Redondo. All right.
We're doing the second Wednesday of the month. We're thinking of moving. I think we should do every Wednesday, because then you don't have to wonder about what Wednesday it is. It's a small room, but the owners are trying to decide whether to do that or not.
Was your turnout good? Are you getting a good turnout for it?
But it's at the Dinghy now, which is another bar that they own. It's like a little deli, a wine and beer bar.
Oh, nice.
So, but it's right down from the slip, right there on the pier, with all the fishermen and all that stuff.
Oh, that's
it's a
cool.
Fun gig, man.
Yeah, I want to do it, dude. As soon as I get a Wednesday, I don't have many Wednesdays. I don't have a lot open. This shift thing, I'm lucky, but the shift thing has me, I'm booked through next year on ships. So,
there you go.
But that's how I pay the.
Now, who are you doing mostly, like Holland America?
Most of my work now is celebrity. That's where most of my work goes, is celebrity. And then Carnival is probably second, and then Norwegian is after that, and then Princess. So I do those four. And it used to be different. Carnival used to only book, Carnival used to book 3 months out. Like they would book the 2 or 3 months. Celebrity goes into the next year, So celebrity, That's why they gave me a bunch of work for next year. So that's why I'm working for them more than anybody right now. And then Carnival, and then Norwegian usually around September, they give me dates for the following year, and then I just fill in the holes with everybody else. So those are the four I work for. I don't, I try to diversify. Like we mentioned, I kind of mentioned that guy, Jeff Connor, earlier in the mid. I learned a lesson years ago. Just guy, Jeff Connor, that booked all these things in the Dakotas. I worked for him almost exclusively because he had a ton of work. He had 3 months of work, and he would run me through every 3 months. That's just the way they did it back then. And I never tried to get work with anyone else. I never tried to get in with Yoder. I did, I would do the A clubs at the time in Chicago. At the time there was 7 clubs. Back when there was 3 or 4 Zanies, 2 the Improv, the Firm, Catch was there, and then Double Exposure. It turned into Double Exposure for a while. During the boom, there was like 6 or 7 A clubs there. So I would do those clubs and then go out on the road and then whatever. And all this stuff. But Jeff was the only road guy I worked for. And then Jeff, he's a thief. He screwed people over left and right. I always heard these stories, but like I said, it was never a problem for me. But eventually he screwed over one too many people, and he disappeared. And I lost all my work for like 6 months. And I was like, oh, damn it. And then I learned, I'm like, oh, don't work for just one person. Don't have all your eggs in one basket. Like you said, you do multiple things. You're a handyman. I think the way to survive is to diversify your income from different platforms and different places. And that way you always have money coming in from somewhere. That way one person can't go, well, then you're gone, and then you're screwed. So anyway, that's why. So it drove my agent crazy because I got a bunch of work from Carnival early on, and he still does this to this day. He'll go, he has other comics that work for him, and they go, "You get a lot of work from Carnival. Why do you care if you get work from other lines? I mean, they're constantly filling your schedule because if something goes wrong with Carnival, then you're gone. You know what I mean? Then you're done. So you got to have, and it gives you bargaining power.
Yeah.
And it's also nice to say no sometimes. When they go, is Lenny available in November? I go, no, I'm actually booked for the next 4 months. So that says something there, right? You know what I mean? Right there. So anyway, I diversified through all these different clubs or different lines or whatever. So I got Carnival next week, and then I got another Carnival, and then I go back to Celebrity or a Princess, and then I have a Celebrity and a Norwegian, and I bounce back and forth. Plus, I like it because the formats are different on the lines. Like every line has their own way they do the shows. Like they do some Princess is strictly 45-minute theater shows, and they're all clean. And then Celebrity is 45-minute theater, but you do one adult. Carnival has a club where you do 30-minute shows, but you do 10 in a week. And Norwegian has a similar 30 club, but they add a theater. So I like mixing the act up a little bit. It keeps it.
Yeah,
otherwise, I get bored.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like the travel sucks though. It's like everybody always goes. Jeff Wayne, you know Jeff Wayne, right? Have you ever met him? Okay, Jeff Wayne jokes about it. He jokes about it all the time. Like, and we talk. And I just worked with Alonzo Bowden too 2 weeks ago, and he has the same. Every comic has the same thing. Like we get the best being on stage is the payoff. What sucks is the travel is the plan. With ships, it's really a pain in the ass because you're going into another country, and sometimes you get long layovers, and you got to fly into a small island, and then you got to have paperwork, and sometimes you got to go through their different securities and customs and immigrations and all this other shit. And it's just the travel day is a whole day. It's like 13 hours of travel, and sometimes going out. Like when you work the East Coast, like I have it this week. I leave Sunday night. I'll probably have 4 shows Monday. So I will travel for 15 hours and then get on the ship and then get settled in, iron my clothes, and go do 5 shows or 4 shows. And
4 shows on the same night?
Yeah, Carnival does this thing now. I'm not a big fan of their format. They do especially these new ships. You do a lot of shows on the new ships. First of all, you get paid more on the new ships, which is good. But sometimes you're doing 4 or 5 shows in a night. And when I first saw the schedule, I was like, oh, that would be cool because then you get all your shows out of the way and then you're done for like a day or 2. But the first time I did it, after the shows, everyone's like, "Do you want to go? We're gonna go to the bar. You want to go get a drink?" And I'm like, No, no, I'm exhausted. I'm so tired right now, and I'm kind of a high energy guy. So when I'm on stage, high energy, that's 2 hours of comedy. I look back at the old Zanies days when they used to do 3 shows on a Friday. I hated that late show. You'd be sitting there and
you can't remember what you've done. And
you're starting to. You're like, shit, did I do this bit? I can't remember. I don't know. Especially if you bounce around a little bit or you're in and out of the crowd and then I'm drinking coffee at 10. I'm like, oh, this is going to suck. You're just exhausted, and you just, and they're kind of, sometimes the crowd sucks at 11:30, but sometimes they're fired up. So that helps a little bit. But then by the time you're done and out of there, it's like 1:30 in the morning or 1, you know what I mean? It's late.
Right.
And then you lose track the other way. You go have a couple of drinks, and before you know it, it's 4:30. You're like, oh shit, what am I doing out at 4:30? You just lose track of everything. But I would be so drained. God, I'd be so tired before that last show. I'll never forget that last show. When they stopped doing that 3rd show on Friday, I was so happy. Or they do a different show. They're like a different. They book totally different now downtown. They do they don't book people for a week a lot. They book them for 2 or 3 nights. And they do a late night special show at 11:30 that somebody books. It's like a weird. It's a good idea, actually. It's actually the way I think the business is moving forward. It's a lot of people that have little social media followings. Like you can't have, you know what I mean? There's not a comic that everybody knows now. There's a comic that has a niche group of audience. So they'll book them on a Thursday and they fill the Thursday. The biggest problem they're having with these TikTok, YouTube comics, you want to call them, or performers, is they can't do a whole week of shows. They can't carry the week, and they don't know how to work a live audience. So it's just tough for them. So they book them for 1 or 2 nights, and they sell out, and they do great. I think all the clubs are going to end up doing that eventually. Yeah,
I mean, I've had auditions in town for commercials where they asked me what my social following was. Social.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Ted Lied lost a gig because of followers years ago. I remember this is even years ago. It's a bigger deal now, but back then he lost. I'm sorry, he lost a pitch meeting. He had a pitch meeting going on, and they dropped him. And the reason was they go, "We don't think you have enough of a social media footprint or following. We're going to go with this other person that has like 1 million followers or whatever." And he had an idea, show fleshed out. And, yeah, that's the thing now, man. That's the new. You got to have those followers, man. Which I don't.
I got to get my MySpace account up,
Look, man, jump back on your AOL and make sure you load it all up and
mega dittos.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I got a couple. Like I've been doing shows since COVID. I started doing this show, and then now this one. This is Total Schmidt Show, which is a variation of the show I did during COVID, which was quarantine comedy. And I originally just started doing it. I never wanted to do a podcast because I was traveling so much. I thought it'd be too much. I didn't care. In fact, I'll be honest. At that point, I was on ships. I go, I think this is the end game for me. I go, I think this is it. I think this is where I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to do 20 years on ships and then retire, get my SAG pension, and go live in a hole somewhere. I just figured that was what it was going to be. But then when I started doing the show, I like doing the show, and I realized you can kind of create your own presence online. But it's like, it's a lot of work, but like I have friends that have millions of followers. They're like, how do you get millions of followers? He's like, all you need is like 1 or 2 videos to go viral, and then suddenly you hit. And it was Keon Pooley.
And then you would be, and if you're viral, you're in a lot better place because you can hold the room for an hour.
And then then you're in a great place because I've already done the road thing. So you can go, I could do a week. I can go in I can do 3 nights. If we sell tickets for 3 nights, I guarantee there'll be good shows. You know what I mean? The live show on stage is not the problem ever for me. You know what I mean? That's always been, now it's the easy part after 35 years. Now the hard part is this getting the followers. But even with the followers, sometimes it's like, it's funny. Like, Brad Upton, his dry bar, I think he's the guy that has the most dry bar views ever in history. And and at the beginning when he went back out on the road, he said it didn't carry immediately on the road. Like it took a while. I mean, he had millions of views and hits and clicks, and he booked work based on that, but then still struggled to get people out. It's still a fight to get people to come out to the show because people can watch you on a phone and a computer. They don't need to go out. You know what I mean? If you're gonna go out, it's an evening. And so now it's like I always talk about this with people. The business has been reinvented so many times over that it's not about booking a club and booking a week and doing this stuff. If you got followers, you can build your own little niche and make enough money from that niche. Like, we both started around the same time, I would imagine, when it was about development deals and getting a manager and getting on TV. And this was kind of the dream or the focus.
Right.
And that changed. And now you can actually make a living on some sort of social media platform and just make a living. You don't have to be a big star or get a TV show or sign with anybody, or there's not someone out there that can make your career for you. You can build your own process online. And if you do it like Mike's podcast, Mike's been doing his podcast for for a long time. And he doesn't have a ton of followers, but he's got loyal followers. And Stanhope built his career the same way. Those guys, you build your own thing, and then people, I hate that guy. And you're like, okay, good, then don't watch him. And it seems like with this technology and this new media and all this stuff, it's given us the opportunity to kind of reinvent ourselves and and actually survive, kind of. And I just hope to get enough followers because I didn't invest well, So I'm hoping to hit the back end of this. And the cruise ship thing it's difficult on the cruise ship. I bring equipment with me when I travel. That's the hard thing about ships is when you're on a ship, nobody knows who you are. I wanted to get away from being only making money from my live show. You know what I mean? Like almost like a residual effect. I still get acting residuals, but it's not much. Yeah. So you got to find a way to somehow market. Go ahead.
I got my first 1 penny residual check the other day.
Oh, did you really? I used to have one hanging on my desk for years. I can't. That's funny, dude. Was it mailed to you? Really?
Yeah.
That's the best. Yeah. I love that. This is the great. They do a lot of. They do a lot of instant. Like cash deposits. Like every 2 weeks I'll get a message from SAG. They go, you have a deposit. Yeah. And I'll be like, oh sweet, how much is this one? And so it's like $3. And I'm like, if I get anything over anything like in double digits, I'm like, oh, that's a victory. That's good.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, it's usually the out of the country ones. Those are pretty good because they mail those to you twice a year. So I get like a pink envelope. I'm like, oh, this could be good. But even those now are down around like 110.
Yeah. It's like a whole string of Eve episodes shown in Guatemala or something.
Yeah, right. I used to early on before they did the automatic deposit thing. I used to come over before the kids lived with me, and I would have my mail on hold. Like I'd go to the post office and go pick up all my mail, or whatever, and I would lay out all the SAG envelopes and take a picture of them and put them on social media and do an over/under thing. And I would go, okay, over/under. How much do you think these are all going to be together? And people would guess. And I would add them all up and tell them who was right and who was wrong. Yeah, it was funny. Sometimes I would get 12 envelopes. The worst one, I got 12 envelopes once. It was $7.30, somewhere around there, $7.30. And I'm like, how is that even possible? I go, you've spent more money to get it to me than you gave it to me.
Of course. Yeah. But, yeah, it's the mailbox money though, man. I did a Geico commercial, and it was just you would just come home and there would be just boom, 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 and envelopes full of money. For 2 years, it was great. And then,
Yeah, I did a couple of big ones. Yeah, I did a Denny's, a Chevy. I did a lot actually. I made commercials, paid my bills for a long time, and. But yeah, those the ones I made the most of. That Denny's spot I made a ton because they aired it during the day during soap operas, and then the Chevy one was good because that aired during football. So, but the Denny's one was the first major big one I got, and that was back that's like Chip Chinnery money, I call it. Back when Chip was doing spots. Chip had like 8 spots out, and they were all paying that money.
Yeah.
So he crushed He was a type for a while. Yeah. You know what I mean? I would show up at auditions. And they go, we need a Chip Chinnery type.
Give me the Chip Chinnery guy.
Right, exactly. I saw it all the time. And I would text her, hey, they're looking for a Chip Chinnery type over here.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, I had my Geico thing ran 2 football seasons, man. And
That's
I'd be
great.
at the bar, working on the bar. And whenever it would come on, the whole bar would go, cha-ching.
Yeah, that's great, dude. That's cool.
That was good, man.
I'll get the same thing. I get messages from people when they see me on TV, like some of the TV stuff I did, reruns. They just played my Bones a few weeks ago on some channel. And saw it. Yeah, they saw it. And they sent me a message. Or I get it now when I do I got a lot of stuff on Sirius. So guys will take pictures of the Sirius. Go, look what I'm listening to. And I'm like, hey, there's 12 cents there. It's like
exactly.
Yeah, but they add up.
I was I can't remember where I was, and my buddy called me and goes, guess what I'm watching? I go, I'm in the room of a people I'm trying to sell aluminum siding to, or whatever he was selling at the time. And I'm watching you on the game show Scrabble with Chuck Woolery.
Chuck Woolery, that's the best.
Man, the first time I lived in L.A., I was like a chef at the Hard Rock Cafe. I moved right out of college. And I went to Reg Grundy Productions, and I got on Scrabble. And this is like 1987. And
wow.
I won $600, some Lee press-on nails, and a Bissell.
So Lee press-on nails?
Yeah, man. That's because I won one game, and then the woman in the second game beat me, so I got the walking away prize as the parting gifts.
Oh, the consolidation or whatever they call it. Yeah.
And I was on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire twice.
Really, dude? Right on, man. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. I was on during prime time with Regis, but I didn't make the hot seat. That was back when you had the 10 people around you.
Right.
And you had to go CBDA, AB, and I was crushing that at home. I would go DCAB, but making that from your brain to your thumbs. So I never made the hot seat, man.
Right.
But then I ended up going to then when I was in I was still on the road. Then I did Meredith Vieira's version, and I won $25,000.
Nice, right on, dude. That's good.
That was cool.
Yeah, I never did any of those. I know Mike was on Greed. I was there for the taping of that, and he won. What did he won? 10 or 50 or something like that. That was literally 2 weeks before our big falling out. Like we had a big, we didn't talk for like 10 years. Mike and I don't even know the story, but
I didn't know that.
Oh, dude, it's funny. We used to live in the same building. And people would come over, comics from Chicago that knew us both. And I'd have a party, and they would go, and Mike and I literally didn't say a word to each other. And they would go, hey, I'm going to go say hello to Mike. Is that a problem? Yeah, my family's like did that for years. My mom did it for years. My mom wasn't talking to my youngest brother when she passed away last year, which is messed up. But it's like a family pattern thing. And Mike and I broke that years ago now. Mike and I we talk now and hang out, and everything's great. But yeah, we went a long time without saying. It was 12 years, man. It was the first 12 years of my oldest daughter's life that Mike and I didn't talk, and then we were friends again when he got divorced. I kind of reached out to him, and we started talking again. So, but anyway, he did Greed, and he won. And Chuck Woolery hosted that. Actually, it only lasted maybe a season or whatever. But I was there. We were there for the taping, and it was just all day long of taping. So we watched it. But he won money there. I did once. I was on a show called Close to Home. That was one of my early gigs out here. And this is back when one of my side jobs. Always like I did Uber Eats during COVID. But before Uber Eats, I delivered food I worked at a restaurant in Venice, Baby Blues. I was there for a long time, and it was the greatest job I ever had. Honestly, my daughter works there actually.
That's some good barbecue, man. There's not much good barbecue in California.
Yeah, no, they're real good. They burned down about a year ago, but they're rebuilding and reopening this year. So they're in the process of doing all that now. But my oldest works there. Yeah, she's been working there she worked there when they burned down. Actually, she was working the night it burned down and left. And 15 minutes later, the place caught fire or whatever. But anyway, that was the greatest job for me because I was a delivery driver and kind of worked in catering and some other stuff. But I got to make my own schedule. So if I booked a gig, and if I had to do an audition, I would just change the schedule, and they let me do it all the time. I mean, that job saved my life. And also, during my divorce, I was a really hard time. I was in a bad place during the divorce, and they stepped up and they gave me a place to stay. And I mean, everybody, the owner's Rick, and he's a great guy. But why did I bring this? Oh, I was delivering food for Baby Blues once, and I walk into the door, and I did a show called Close to Home, and I knock on the door, and somebody opens the door, and they see it's me, and they go to get the money, and they're talking to somebody on the couch, and I look, and they froze the TV, and it's me in a scene from Close to Home. Like I played a garbage man. I'm like, I got a garbage can. I'm talking to the detective. And the woman with the money brings me the money. The guy on the couch looks at the TV, and he looks up at me and looks back at the TV and looks back at me. I go, yeah. I go, that's me. And they pay me the money. And I go, yeah, this is what it's like to be an actor in L.A., by the way. Have a nice night. Enjoy your food. I'll see you later.
Glamour life.
Yeah, this is it. I'm a superstar. And that was the thing I never explained to people back home. Like there's a while where I had a lot of commercials there, and people were like, man, you must be killing it. And I'm like, no, especially like cable commercials. At that time they were doing that buyout. Right. They do it all now. I did 5 ESPN spots that aired nonstop all day, and they did a straight buyout and called them promos, and they paid you $300 a quarter, and that's all you got. So my friends would be like, "You're on TV all the time." I go, "Yeah, you don't understand how it works." I go, "I'm not. I'm okay. I'm surviving, but I'm a blue collar actor, basically."
Yeah. Well, and kind of the days of the middle class blue collar actor are over. That if you can only make it, you could make it with only doing the acting,
right?
With a couple of commercials or whatever, because all the commercials are non-union now,
right? Right.
It's just nuts.
No, there's a handful of gigs that pay, and now there's no more. Even guest star, co-star stuff doesn't pay what it used to. And like we had people over the other night because my ex is in town, so we had the kids went to school. We have a bunch of parents that are actors or used to be actors. Honestly, they've moved on to other things. And we're talking about the writer's strike, which that AI thing is creepy as shit for the writers. I mean, that's really fucked up. And then, but commercial wise, you can't do that anymore. Like for a while I was doing commercials. You can have one a quarter, residuals, and making some money. It's impossible now. There's no way you can make that money. And I don't know how they're trying to make writers kind of that in that vibe. Like actors, you had to hustle for your next gig always. It was always, unless you were in that elite group that was on a show, you know what I mean? And you would do a show like I did when I did NCIS. They were amazing. I had a trailer and they were great. And I talked to Mark Harmon for pretty much the whole day. I was there all day, and he was and I told him, I go, this is a great gig. I just want to say thanks. And he was so gracious, and he goes, I know what it's like for you guys to try to get these gigs. He goes, it's just a pain in the ass. He goes, you guys are hustlers. He goes, we're on every week. We're making the TV money.
Yeah.
He goes, you're here for the day. He goes, so we just want to make it as a great of experience as possible and be nice to you. And everyone's nice. And, and they were, most of the shows I did, they were like that. They got it. They understood as a day player that you were busting your ass all week to try to get an audition, to get booked. You were going out and, it was just hard work. But those days, like now, it's almost like they're trying to do the same thing with writers, where it's a hobby, where anything,
right?
If you're creative, then it's a hobby. And I just think, I don't know, man. In the long run, I don't know. I think it's gonna. Well, I think they've also trained the audiences to not care in a lot of ways. I mean, there's a lot of shows you watch that are crap, and I don't think anybody gives a shit anymore on some level.
Well, yeah, and if you're used to watching your phone on vertical and you're watching somebody lip sync to somebody else's comedy material, and that is what, you're like, what value is there in, Dan Rosen writing a great comedy movie or whoever, because, I'm going to be watching my fucking, TikTok. I'm going to watch a guy, kicking somebody in the balls because he got scared out of a garbage can, and that's what I think is entertainment.
Yeah, the reality shit, the reality stuff started that years earlier, where I have friends that they watch these reality shows, and I'm like, I mean, my daughters watch one of the modeling ones or whatever, but I don't. I mean, they purposely, if they could, and you know what, they're doing the same thing on cruise ships, bro. They've found a way to eliminate some of the big shows in some of these cruise ships. And if they ever figure out comedy, this is why a lot of comics are on cruise ships. That's their biggest moneymaker, is that you get comics. It's one guy in a room. As far as overhead for a cruise line, it's the cheapest form of entertainment for them. Whatever they're paying the comic. One comic can do an hour in a theater and entertain 800 people. You know what I mean? You don't need sound people, tech people, a cast, all this. You don't need people to write the show, develop the show, you don't need a band. You don't need any of that shit. Even the solo singers, that go out and perform on cruise ships, they don't have bands anymore. They have all their music on some sort of iPod or tracks. So they're basically singing to the tracks, and they can do both. They bring their own music with them. But on the other hand, if they ever figure out how to eliminate the comics, they'll do that in a heartbeat. I mean, you're gone. They'll just, it's all the corporations. Once they find a way to eliminate the people that they have to pay, I think they'll do that.
I blame Obama.
Okay. I'm with you. All right, I agree. That's an interesting take. That's a bold
Somebody's
move.
out there blaming Obamacare. You got to blame Obama for everything.
Yeah, I'm with you. You're right.
I love the guy, but it mentioned,
Yeah, but he screwed us a little bit. All right, man. Hey, let's wrap this up. This is great, dude. An hour went by already. Thank you for doing this, dude. You were great. You were perfect.
Man, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, awesome. I'll have you back on later on, man. We'll do this again, man. I get around and talk to you about all kinds of shit. But is there anything you want to plug, social media wise? You got something, a website, Insta?
You can come see. We're booking the show. I'm getting ready to start a podcast with Becky Pedigo, but that's not up yet. So, but just come when you come when Lenny books the show down in Redondo. Come see the show in Redondo at the Slip. And I'll see you out there because I'm just starting back out, man. So I'm kind of getting back out there. I'm tired of the bar business. I'm 60 and I shouldn't be fighting people.
No, you shouldn't be, man. Plus, you do a digital thing. I love Becky Pedigo. Is awesome. She's great. That'll be a great podcast. She's brilliant. She's very funny, man. I love her.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it'll be a good time. So, do you guys have a name for it yet?
I'll call you back and let you plug it. Huh?
Yeah, I will. Let me know. Do you have a name for it yet, or are you guys still putting it together?
Overserved.
Overserved. I love it. All right. Perfect. Awesome. Lawrence, Larry, thanks, man, for being here. I really appreciate it, dude.
Thank you, man.
All right, buddy.
Wow.
You're still watching? That's amazing. Nobody does that. Nobody, but you did. That means you want more. Pick one of these clips. Go for it. I dare you. Hey, also, follow one of those social media thingies.